Hello, everyone. Welcome to the big show. Oh my gosh, AOC could really go down over this whole thing. Tom Homan out with some explosive comments that we got to get to. Meanwhile, Letitia James is somehow having a total meltdown, trying to walk us, I guess, in her eyes, towards some kind of constitutional crisis. Well, guess what? I've got news for her. That's actually not going to happen. We're not going to hit a constitutional crisis, and I can tell you exactly why. Because the state of New York does not have the legal power to go up against the federal government here. There's something called, the Supremacy Clause. Did they not teach you that at Harvard Law, Letitia? Apparently not. Welcome to the program, everyone. I am Trish Regan, and it is very good to have you here on this Valentine's Friday. We got big news to talk about. Tom Homan making something very clear going on with Fox News' Laura Ingraham last night. I want you to hear this. Laura's referencing, before she asked him about it, she's referencing these webinars that have been given by AOC, in which she's instructing people. I played it for you guys the other day, instructing people how to avoid the feds, how to avoid getting deported. And she's walking them through things, one by one. And effectively, if you think about it, it's really pretty flagrant, if you would, her just, in your face sort of violation of federal laws. And how can you have that, really? How can you have a congressperson doing that when you do have the Supremacy Clause and you do have a federal government that has jurisdiction over things like immigration? This is what Laura asked him, and I want you to hear his response. It's a big deal.
Out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So I'm working with the Department of Justice and finding out where is that line that they cross. So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now, but I need the AOG to opine on that. But because there's impediment is impediment, in my opinion. I'm not a prosecutor, but we need some further guidance on that. But again, if we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we'll do it. I mean, we're done. This is.
Did you hear that? If we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we will do it. Well, that's exactly what they're doing, by the way. Exactly what they're doing. And Letitia James is freaking out. I'll get more on that in just a second, because that just happened. But just consider what's going on here with AOC, right? And she's trying to spin a whole narrative.
We're on the eve of an authoritarian administration. This is what 21st century fascism is starting to look like.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And you know why it's not? Because, again, I go back to the Supremacy Clause, and I go back to the reality that the jurisdiction, when it comes to immigration and who is in this country and who is not, it falls back on the feds. So when they try and pretend like it's not a crime to be in this country illegally, I got news for them. That's not the case. And I'll walk you through all of it. Because you have to actually apply for asylum. That's not what people are doing. You know what? There's certain rules and regulations around this. It all came about actually in 1951, the Refugee Convention, the 1967 Protocol. To qualify for asylum, you got to prove that you've been persecuted, okay? Well-founded fear of persecution. That has to be there. And guess what else? You need something else. You got to be there on protected grounds, meaning the persecution must be based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. It has nothing to do with, I want a better economic opportunity. Granted, you're sure everybody wants a better economic opportunity. That is not grounds for asylum, ladies and gentlemen. And that means if you're here and you haven't filed for asylum meeting these two protocols, then guess what? You're here illegally. I'll say it, okay? You're here illegally.
I also want to make the point that an undocumented immigrant is not a criminal because he or she is undocumented. That is a civil offense. So to call people illegal is in and of itself, I think, xenophobic and racist.
Again, did she not understand this? Did she not understand how you actually qualify to be here? You need to apply for asylum. You can't just walk in. Okay, like, can I walk into Mexico without getting my passport stamped? No. Okay, like you just can't do that. You certainly can't go there and then try and, live off the system, thank you very much, or let alone possibly try and vote, which is where this was all heading. Think about that. New York City, moving to allow 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections. It's something that happened in Berkeley or Oakland, California as well. I mean, there's a method to the madness, ladies and gentlemen, and you wonder why people spoke up, had to take their country back, take your financial life back too. Go to 76research.com, my own financial research company. I started with my friend Rob Horton. Code word dollar, because then you get it, the 76 report for $1 a month. Take your financial future back. If you're really looking to invest, I do recommend the model portfolios. We get 3 of them there. You can check those again at 76 Research. But I'm telling you, Letitia James, Letitia baby, she's out for blood. She had some kind of meltdown here today. Watch.
No one elected Elon Musk and his minions, and no one has allowed him to have access to this information. This is a violation of the separation of powers. The United States Congress, the United States Senate, has the sole discretion in having the power of the purse, and not Elon Musk. We are here today to seek a preliminary injunction to stand up against those forces who believe that they can unilaterally have power and have control, all in the hands of the President of these United States.
He's smart. He just turned off the money. He's got the Treasury Department. Like, we don't have to fund this. You guys aren't actually abiding by the law. So why would we need to say, go and fund Rikers Island for, people that are known criminals and here illegally to get 3 squares a day? We don't have to do that. Letitia James is like, oh, yes, you do. And we're going to protect those people because, they need protection. Forget about, the poor person who's just trying to ride the subway in New York City. You see how their priorities are completely out of whack? I mean, really out of whack. And we're learning that it has been bad for some time, especially for the last 4 years. DOGE is exposing every single bit of it. Boy, are they angry. They don't like Elon for doing this. They're trying to say it's illegal. I don't think it is. I don't think it's one bit. In other words, the President of the United States has ordered an audit on all of these departments. And he brought in DOGE, an outside contractor, to do the audit. And they're finding out all kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, you get total chaos because New York's like, F you, we're not going to bother doing anything you want. We're going to continue allowing people to get driver's licenses. And we're going to say you don't have to show any proof of identity if you get pulled over. And by the way, we're not going to help you at Rikers Island with those criminals that are here illegally. We're not going to coordinate with ICE. And he says, you know what? Fine. You do you, I do me. Money is gone. I love it. It's like the parent, right, that comes in and is like, okay, hey, kid, I don't like your lifestyle right now. I don't appreciate this. This is not going in the direction that we not want or need. So no more money. You're cut off. So much for the allowance. I mean, why should you get federal taxpayer dollars? Why should my taxpayer dollars go to New York City and the state of New York, given that they are squandering every single bit of it? Well, Letitia's melting down.
Payments to the state of New York and to states all across this nation. It is unacceptable, unconstitutional, ultra-vires. They have exceeded their authority. And so it's important that attorneys general representing our respective states stand up and enforce the rule of law, because Elon Musk, individuals at the Treasury, and the President of these United States is not above the law. And we will continue. As attorneys general, we've been preparing for this. This is not the outcome that we wanted.
How many times has she said that? Like, seriously, guys, I've played you the sound bites before. This is not the outcome we wanted or expected, but we've been preparing for this. We've been studying their playbook. I mean, I know the whole speech by heart. I don't need to bore you with it, but this is her MO, okay? Well, Letitia, again, you may not be the brightest bulb. You may be a heck of a politician, though, but I'm just going to remind you, because I didn't go to law school, but I'm not an idiot. And I know that the federal government has power over, if anything, most definitely, our borders. That's like basic stuff. So they have total control over this, whether she wants to admit it or not. They have the power to enforce immigration law over the states, incidentally. So the states can get out there and say, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And that's exactly what New York and plenty of others, sanctuary states, sanctuary cities have done. But when it comes to something called the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, it means the states, they can say and do whatever they want, but ultimately the power rests with the federal government. Here you go. Because it says that the law of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Congressional intent is paramount in preemption analysis. Accordingly, a court must determine whether Congress expressly or implicitly intended to preempt state or local action. All right, by the way, you got H.R. 35 that they've also implemented, in which Congress is saying if somebody is here illegally, that's a problem. They need to be deported. And this is what Pam Bondi has been arguing, because she's saying things like the green light law in New York City and New York State, they actually put law enforcement that are trying to do their job in jeopardy, which is pretty messed up.
And if you don't comply with federal law, we will hold you accountable. We did it to Illinois. Strike one. Strike two is New York. And if you are a state not complying with federal law, you're next. Get ready. And the great men and women of law enforcement are standing behind me today. We have FBI, DEA, ATF agents. They put their...
Okay? They're putting their lives in jeopardy, going out there trying to get the bad guys. And you got Letitia James, who just wants to start a political fight.
Not only does this administration's new policy put people at risk, but it is plainly unconstitutional. The president does not get to decide which laws to enforce and for whom.
Yeah, again, honey bunny, you're wrong. I sound like Benny and Mike Davis, right? the president's lawyer who, I love this soundbite. Let's see, do we have this? He's like, basically, Letitia, you're heading to the slammer if you continue down this path. I do believe he said we're going to put your fat in jail. In prison, I think was the way he said it. Anyway, because again, you go back to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. Guess what? The U.S. has the power to establish a uniform form of naturalization. The U.S. is totally in control of who's in, who's out. The federal government enforces immigration laws. And if you have any doubt about that, Letitia, go take a look at the actual Constitution, where it actually says, yes, the law of the land shall be the supreme law of the land. Okay, so that is the Supremacy Clause, and it means, Letitia, you can't get away with this. You really can't. There are rules set up. You think, and she tweeted out that New York has its own laws and its own rules about all of this. It doesn't matter. And so if you're not going to abide by the law, yeah, they're going to sue you. But they might also do what they do with spoiled children. Cut you off. That's what happened. She is cut off. And it's kind of fantastic because somebody's finally standing up for Americans. You want to come into the country, you come in the legal way, okay? You apply for asylum. Should not be that hard. And no, this is not a constitutional crisis. It doesn't have to be a constitutional crisis. This is actually pretty simple stuff. And the Supreme Court will decide it. So Caitlin Collins and CNN and the New York Times, you can go on about this all you want. You're just over-dramatizing.
We are 3 weeks into the second Trump presidency, 3 weeks. And tonight there are warnings that the U.S. is dangerously close to a constitutional crisis.
No, it's not. Because once again, this is simple stuff, okay? Simple stuff. The feds have control over the border. That's why, hey, you know what, Governor Abbott, I felt for him down there in Texas, trying to put the wall back up as Biden was taking it down, and he couldn't do it. Why couldn't he do it? Oh, because you see, the federal government, i.e. Biden at that time, had control over the border. And our lovely border czar one Kamala Harris, she had no interest in controlling any of that. Makes you wonder why, right? So no, there's no constitutional crisis. This will go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will say, you know what? Hey, feds have control of this. There is the Supremacy Clause. And the bottom line is, you all, Letitia, AOC, Ilhan Omar, the entire squad, Kathy Hochul, you're all wrong. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Pretty magnificent stuff. But I asked this, why were they doing it? Like, think about, like, why, like, what's the rationale here? Why would they be doing this? I realize it's kind of like bordering on conspiracy theory when you say, well, maybe they were looking for votes. I mean, the reality is a lot of people came here as soon as they were here and they had legal status. They actually looked around and said, we don't like what they're doing either, right? So I don't know if that necessarily would have won them the day at the end of the day, but I think that's what they were doing. I really do. And you know why? Take a look at this. Think about New York allowing or moving to allow. I don't think they're going to get any of this through, but they wanted to allow 800,000 people that were not citizens here in the country to be able to vote in local elections. I mean, it's wild. Like, can you go anywhere else and not be a citizen and suddenly be voting in elections? I mean, try that in Switzerland. Good luck. Right? Try it in Mexico. Good luck. Like, that's not happening. So why would it happen here unless the Democrats were just trying to get more votes? Is that what this is? I kind of think it is. And thank goodness it's getting stopped. Thank goodness, because, you know, there were things that you couldn't say. There were times when you couldn't say stuff like this. But I'm telling you, Berkeley was out there doing this. New York City's trying to do this. They had DEI creeping into everything you buy on Wall Street. It's why we started 76 Research Model Portfolios over there, for those of you interested. The bottom line is they wanted to censor everybody so that they could continue with this narrative. They still want to censor you. This Ayanna Pressley, who is the representative from Massachusetts, trying to say that censorship, we need to work with people to have censorship. And I'm like, has no one read the Constitution of the United States of America and the First Amendment? Thank you very much.
Look, let me tell you something. I'll take a bit of umbrage here. I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think I can say we are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress. But
okay, she wants to censor the American people. That's what she wants. It's what AOC, who's, by the way, trying to tell illegals how you know, and she's going to say, well, it's First Amendment. Okay, but you're actually a lawmaker who's now in direct violation of federal laws. She's out there trying to say we need to rein in and censor the media. This is what they do, okay? This is Chavez-style communism.
You know, I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
It would be great if you would, because, you know, actually you guys put all kinds of disinformation, misinformation out there over and over and over again. And you were all over us because we were trying to report the truth. Right here on the Trish Regan Show. Reminder, subscribe, share, like, all that stuff, because it really, really matters. It's really important. Join the conversation if you're watching live. If not, tell us what you think in the comments below, because they tried aggressively, they're still trying to shut down speech. And look, I mean, talking about gaslighting people. I mean, to sit there with a straight face and try and tell you that that laptop from one Hunter Biden was nothing but misinformation fed to you courtesy of Rudy Giuliani, when it was real, and they knew it was real. They knew going back to 2019 that it was being investigated by the FBI. and that he was being investigated by the FBI. And yet 51X spooks, all part of this so-called deep state, they come out with that letter and they place it in Politico, which, by the way, was getting millions of dollars from USAID, of course. I mean, you can't make it up. Now they'll say, oh, that's false information. We weren't really getting money from the government. Well, they were getting subscription money, okay? They were charging $10,000 a subscription for Politico Pro. Reminds me of the toilet seat things that were happening in the military way back when Regan had to crack down on it. $10,000 a subscription for people to have Politico Pro. I'm sorry. You know what? The Bloomberg terminal is great. Politico Pro, not so much. So it was not worth $10,000, but they can hide behind that and say, oh, we weren't really, the U.S. government was a customer of Politico. How interesting that the U.S. government with the deep state and USAID, they're the ones that, okay, decided we're going to say that this is false misinformation. You can't talk about this, laptop. And then they put the letter where they said this, signing their 51 signatures in Politico, bought and paid for media. I mean, that's what it is. It's on top of the New York Times, which we've learned got roughly $50 million, including $30 million from HHS. No wonder they did not want RFK Jr. in there. No wonder they were fawning over Fauci. Again, paid media. At least NPR and PBS have the decency to tell us otherwise. And now they're going to sit there and they're going to fight this and they're going to fight it and they're going to fight it. And you know what? They're not going to win.
Millions of Americans tuned in to one of the most shameful hours we have ever seen on cable television. Fox News host Tucker Carlson ran a lengthy segment last night arguing the January 6th Capitol attack was not a violent insurrection.
Remember that? I wanted to show you that because Chuck Schumer, he got Tucker fired. This is the deep state at work, you guys. This is what they are capable of. And they forget all about this little thing called the First Amendment, that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peacefully assemble or to petition the government for redress of grievances. I mean, they are trying to impose, or did, I should say, because America voted and America kicked them out, but they were trying to impose some kind of Chavez-like Marxism, socialism system on all of us. And it's pretty darn terrifying when you think of what could have been, right? Well, it's not going to be. Donald Trump is not going to stand for this. He's already canceled 85 contracts at the Department of Education, and Maxine's having a heart attack. Maxine Waters.
Look them in the eye. Come on, hold your face up. Look at him. Let him see you. This is him. Look at it. What's your name? Tell us your name. Give me that ID again.
Giving you the ID. I showed it to you.
So what?
I showed you the ID.
You do what?
I showed you the ID.
Could you let me see the ID again? Huh?
No.
No? Will someone else ask him for the ID? Will you ask him for it? He won't let me see it again. You didn't see it. You didn't see it. They didn't see it.
So the Department of Education is in for a rough ride. Maxine knows it. She was trying to get an appointment, you see, unscheduled, with Linda McMahon, who now runs the Department of Education. Because you see, Donald Trump, he's canceling contracts like this one. The Department of Education was given $8 million, how do you like this, to an NGO, which argued that America is a, quote, racialized structure of power, privilege, and oppression, and suggests that Republicans are violently fighting for the maintenance of white supremacy. It advises public schools in 13 states. Look at the little chart that they put out. Whiteness. That's the problem. It's a construct with historical, institutionalized, structural, emotional, psychic dimensions that are embedded in a radicalized structure of power, privilege, oppression, and exclusion. This is what they were force-feeding 13 states. They're the advisor for 13 states, and your money, my money, it went to them. I want it back. I want every single dollar back. You know what? I'm going to be the spoiled child here. I want the money back. Who were these crazies trying to take our country and take our kids with this nonsense, this gross distortion of reality. Donald Trump says these people are like thugs. It was nothing but a giant con job.
How soon do you want the Department of Education to be closed?
Oh, I'd like it to be closed immediately. Look, the Department of Education's a big con job. We're ranked, so they rank the top 40 countries in the world. We're ranked number 40th. But we're ranked number 1 in one department, cost per pupil. So we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world, but we're ranked number 40. We've been between 38 and 40. The last time I looked, it was 38, and then I looked 2 days ago, it came out the new list. It came out at number 40, so we're ranked 40. Norway, Denmark, Sweden, I hate to say it, China, as big as it is, it's ranked in the top 5, and that's a primary competitor. We're ranked number 40. So if we're ranked number 40, that means something's really wrong, right? And I say send it back to Iowa, to Idaho, to Colorado. Send it back to places that, and a lot of Indiana. You have a great new governor. You have a great senator that Jim Banks just got elected. You got great people. I'll tell you what, Indiana is going to be fantastic. We probably have 35, maybe 37 states that will do as well as Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden. They'll be just as good. Then you have the ones that we all know about. It'll be the same story. But you know what? Even they will be good. Because you look at New York, you give it to Westchester County, you give it to Long Island, you give it to Nassau County, you give it to Suffolk County. Same thing you go out to, and you give it to upstate New York. So you'd have 4 or 5 sections. You give it to Manhattan. Manhattan's a little bit tougher for some reason. I don't know why it would be tougher, but it is. You give to California, and you go to various areas outside of Los Angeles, and you might have 6 or 7 different subgroups. But generally, like if you go to Iowa, you give it to Iowa. You don't have subgroups, you have Iowa.
Okay, so the idea is you give it to the states, all right? Like, you don't have this federal bureaucracy where there's a lot of murkiness and clearly an effort to reward certain pet projects. And when you think about what they were trying to do with DEI, to shame anyone who is white, because if you're white, that's part of the problem. Basically, what they were trying to do is strip down the meritocracy that we have always been. Like, you know, it's kind of twisted, but if you see color, you're racist. If you don't see color, you're racist. So go figure. Like, basically, everybody's a racist, right? Like, that's where they're coming from. And there's a lot of really angry people that buy into this and say, you know what, certain groups have never had a chance. Look, I don't dispute that people grow up in different circumstances. But you can't fix everything after the fact. The idea is you got to go back to the beginning, okay? Think about it, guys. I've told you this story, right, because of my musical background. I always thought it's really just a wonderful example of how we are a meritocracy. Orchestra auditions. If you audition for the New York Philharmonic, you still get to audition behind a screen. They don't know who you are. They don't know how old you are. They don't know if you're male or female. When I was at a conservatory, my first year, I had a friend. She was about 17 years old, 18 years old. She actually left the conservatory because she got a gig as the flutist, however you say it, at the Philadelphia Philharmonic. And she was like 17 years old. It was a big job, right? And she said to me, gosh, you know, if they'd ever seen me, they would have never given it to me. But isn't that the beauty of having a system that doesn't choose people based on gender or race, for goodness sakes? Well, you can imagine the New York Times, the LA Times, they've been writing article after article about how we have to get rid of those curtain auditions at orchestras because we don't have enough representation of Black Americans in orchestras. To which I say, you're not going to fix it by trying to make the lead violinist, first violin, somebody who just fits a whole bunch of boxes, checks the boxes. That's not going to fix it, guys. You're just going to make, the New York Philharmonic not be as good, right? If they can't play the tune, if they can't play the violin as well as somebody else, then why would you give them the job? Except we have to correct for past wrongs. No, the answer is you fix it. At the lowest level, you go back to when that kid's 3 years old. You start giving violin lessons at 3 years old. You make sure there's 2 parents in a home. You incentivize all the good stuff, Okay? You don't fix it after the fact with handouts. These people, they were getting the handouts, for goodness sakes. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. It has to stop, and it is stopping. Take a look. This is another one. Okay? The Department of Education funded propaganda, this thing called Equity Express, and they were trying to recruit coaches in men and women's sports that were, quote, anti-oppressive coaches. Again, your taxpayer money is going to this stuff. This crap, right? As Caroline said the other day, it really is. We could call it something else, I won't. And avoid reinforcing values like masculinity and muscular Christianity. Whatever that is. Apparently, if you exclude trans women, you're valuing masculinity and muscular Christianity. Excluding trans women, they said, hurts all women. And they even had like a little diagram for it. How do you like this? This is the Equity Express. Otherwise known as the highway to hell. How do you like this? Coach 1. So this is sort of like what you're supposed to say. Coach 1 is being asked, by a parent, hey, it's not fair. Kate, who is really Joe, is a boy and shouldn't even be here. Our real daughters don't stand a chance. To which Coach 1 might say, well, I agree with you. It's not fair, but it's not my choice. Blame the Secretary of Education and his policy. Okay, that's a big X. You're not supposed to say that. Coach 2 might say, I know, I agree with you. I'm all for supporting people's rights, but just make a transgender-only competition. Coach 2, you're out too. They want you to know what the right response is. I mean, they've even got a poster for it, right? Equity Express, a.k.a. Highway to Hell. My word's not theirs. Coach response 3. This is the guy who's supposed to get the gig, or gal. Or maybe not. Maybe it's not a guy or a gal. Maybe it's something else entirely, because gender apparently doesn't matter. There is no way for a woman's body to be, Plus, transgender athletes' bodies vary in athletic ability just as cisgender, oh my God, we're going through with that terminology, athletes' bodies do. Including transgender athletes promotes values of non-discrimination and inclusion among all student athletes. And I am glad to be a part of that. Well, guess what, little Equity Express? You're gone too. Gone. And I want the money back. American taxpayers deserve our money back. I'm thinking clawback. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Donald Trump signing that bill just the other day with all those little girls surrounding him. This is just a really sweet moment.
You want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay?
I know it's hard to hear him.
What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor?
But it's a really beautiful picture. It's just a beautiful picture to see. Standing up for girls, standing up for women, standing up for women's sports. I'm really proud. I partnered with an organization this year called Herzog, the Herzog Foundation. And one of the things that they care about, obviously, are things like this, right? Women's sports, girls' education, but boys' education too. They care about educating American kids in ways that don't involve all this DEI, you know the word for it, okay? The Equity Express, AKA Highway to Hell chart. They don't buy into any of that, right? This is not what they're about. And so at the Herzog Foundation, they have just created a tremendous wealth of resources for people who are looking to maybe get their kids out of the public education system where you had this kind of nonsense going on and into the K through 12 system that is Christian in its foundation. So Christian schools all across the country, which just do an amazing job at educating kids. So I'm very proud to be partnered with them. If you're thinking about maybe your kid moving to another school or your grandchild or maybe a friend's child, go check out Herzog Foundation because all this information there is free and you can get access to this, and they've got a podcast and they have a newsletter and all that stuff. So I really do recommend it. But this DEI stuff, I mean, this was threatening our country. This actually would have taken us to the brink. It's why we started 76 Research, Rob and I, my dear friend of many years who has a similar view to me, shall we say, and you can see we've done really well. I encourage you to go check it out. You can use code word dollar, DOLLAR, to get it for just $1 a month. This DEI stuff was attacking everything though. Not just schools, you had networks, right? Newsrooms, you had the movie culture, of course, Hollywood buying into all of this, and now it's coming back to bite them. Think about this movie. One Captain America. Do you know that? The Avengers? Captain America, kind of storied franchise, kind of a big deal. Well, they just came out with their newest box office news, and guess what? Captain America bombed at the box office first night out. Not such a good showing, shall we say. But it is the DEI Captain America. Captain America, this is according to Cosmic Book News. Brave New World, Thursday box office underperforming with 12 million in receipts. So keep in mind, that's much lower. And then Quantumania is 17.5 million from 2023. So the franchise is going downhill, right? The franchise is going downhill. Now, why is that? Now, first of all, other people may try and tell you, and these guys pointed out that the shill site, Deadline is like that Hollywood site that some of these studio PR people have on speed dial. Well, Deadline is trying to say, oh, it's looking really good, right? It actually performed better than Winter Soldier. But actually what they're not doing is telling you the numbers adjusted for inflation. Funny how that works, right? Adjusted for inflation, it's a whole different thing. It's like when the New York Times tried to tell us that wages were going up. And I'm reading this and I'm like, you got to be kidding. I mean, this is sort of criminal. I mean, this is basic stuff. I mean, granted, I know I have the background in economics and financial journalism, but you can't really talk about wages without talking about wages adjusted for inflation. There's something called real wages. When you talk about box office receipts, you also can't talk about box office receipts unless you're talking about real box office receipts. In other words, adjusted for inflation. So Deadline on speed dial, the Hollywood studios is trying to pretend it's all fine and grand. These guys are calling them out and they're pointing out that, hey, you know what? Take a look. John, thank you so much. I'm going to get to your comments momentarily. John S., thank you again. Captain America, the Winter Soldier came out 11 years ago. So it means in today's dollar, the Thursday previews were $10.2 million for Captain America. The Winter Soldier actually brought in nearly $14 million. And guess what? Here's the number that they're going to have to beat. The 3-day opening, forget about the $95 million in today's dollars. It brought in a massive $127 in today's dollars. So $95 million in today's dollars is $127 million because, yes, we have inflation. So that is the number that Captain America is going to have to beat. And you know what? I don't think they can do it. I don't think this guy, Anthony Mackie, he's the big actor. He took over the big role there. He's the new Captain America. And, let's just say, Disney was under pressure, apparently at the time, because all these NGOs and apparently USAID, they were all mandating that you had to have certain DEI initiatives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this poor guy, it's quite possible, I'm just saying, if this movie doesn't perform, he's going to be the victim of this, really, because, so far, not looking very good. But then again, you kind of got to wonder, is Anthony Mackie, the new Captain America, he's just bought into this all hook, line, and sinker, right? He's over in Rome, Italy, on an international stage trying to promote his movie. And this is something. Captain America does not think Captain America is representative of America.
For me, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations. It's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. Someone who is trustworthy and dependable.
Not America? Is that the deal? Captain America is supposed to represent resilience, hope, the enduring struggle to uphold justice, right, in the face of adversity. His shield and ideals have inspired countless stories, making him a beloved character across generations. So Captain America is sort of the essence of America, right? If you would, that's kind of the whole point. Hey, you know what? If it weren't for America, we'd all be speaking German today. I'm just going to say it, right? America's done a lot of good, a whole lot of good in this world. But don't tell anyone in Hollywood that. Now, certainly not the new Avengers guy, Captain America, that doesn't really love America. He realizes, I think, because he came out with a little tweet, or rather, I should say, Instagram message about this. Let me be clear about these. I'm a proud American. I'm taking on the shield of a hero like Cap. It's an honor of a lifetime. I have the utmost respect for those who serve and have served our country. Cap has universal characteristics that people all over the world can relate to. Well, you know why he's saying that? News this week. Disney's dumping its DEI programs. He's also admitted that he may not get a sequel. In other words, if this movie doesn't perform, he may not get another one. Because you see, it suddenly matters that you perform, like that you actually get box office receipts and that shareholders actually get something out of this, right? Because they're investing with Disney. And by the way, they've seen the share price basically cut in half, adjusted for inflation. It's even worse. So it means you're going to have to actually produce. And it means that you're going to have to actually come up with good storylines. Disney's getting rid of these DEI programs and apparently now is trying to take down all those trigger warnings on some of those movies. Imagine that. They had trigger warnings on movies. Movies like Dumbo, movies like Peter Pan, Aristocrats, Lady and the Tramp. I don't even know what these were on, like Lady and the Tramp. What was the trigger warning there? Swiss Family Robinson? Give me a break. What was so offensive about Swiss Family Robinson? So they had these trigger warnings because they were buying into this narrative that, by the way, was all about this wokeness, and it was gross, right? Because they were putting so much money, your money, into these woke programs in order to try and distort reality. And finally, Americans said, you know what? I've had enough. It's over. It is over. And Disney is going to be in just a little bit of trouble. I suspect. I mean, it's not just Captain America that's the problem, but one show called The View. I'm getting to that in a second, but thank you for all the compliments today. I always appreciate it. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. I take my Balance of Nature every day. A little plug for one of the great sponsors on this show. I take my vitamins from Balance of Nature, and it is a wonderful product. I can attest to that. My gummies, fruits and veggies that I take every single day. It's just really, I mean, I sound repetitive. I get it because I talk about this every day, but I don't think I've ever had a winter where I have not been sick. Now, you know what? We're getting started. So I don't want to, I should knock on wood or something. I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but it's been good that I have not yet been sick this year, and I hope that that will continue. And I thank Balance of Nature for that. So I take my fruits and veggies every single day, kind of like when I was a kid and I took my vitamins. This stuff is pretty good. You can check it out. You can get 35% off, actually, if you use code word Trish, Trish, my name. Go and do that. Use code word Trish. Go check out Balance of Nature, 35% off, plus free shipping, plus you actually get money back guarantee, of course, so no harm, no foul, and it's about taking care of yourself. Disney, meanwhile, still dealing with lots of trouble. So Disney has just dropped its DEI programs. That's a big deal, right? But it kind of has to now because DEI is actually against the law. I mean, you can't actually just give somebody a job just because of the color of their skin. That actually is against the law. You see, that's called discrimination. And so Trump was like, no more, okay? We're getting rid of this. And I think they're going to have a little problem with, that one show called The View on ABC. Brandon Carr, he's the new head of the FCC. He's not messing around. He's already sent Bob Iger a note. And, they have this woman called Whoopi Goldberg who's a bit of an issue and has spread all kinds of lies and serious propaganda on The View daily. I mean, the whole lot of them are just a disaster, but there's one in particular that seems to be trying to keep her mouth shut lately. But remember when she said this?
I'm going to be, on day one, I'm going to be a dictator. Who says it to you, tells you, I'm going to put you people away. I'm going to take all the journalists, I'm going to take all the gay folks, I'm going to move you all around and disappear you. If that's the country you want, you know who to vote for. If that's not the country you want, you have to make a decision.
Well, guess what? People made a decision. They voted for Donald Trump. And he won big, okay? It's amazing when you think about it because they had all the media in their back pocket, right? Every single one of these groups. They had the New York Times. They were paying them $50 million. They had Politico. They were paying them too. They were paying AP, Associated Press, $52 million. I mean, what the heck? Like, AP never told us that. New York Times never told us that. Again, I keep saying this. NPR and PBS, as much as we may not like them, as frankly demented, the woman who runs NPR is, my gosh, this privileged girl from Connecticut. Fairfield County, Connecticut, who somehow thinks that, she's running a news organization where she takes federal taxpayer dollars, but she doesn't actually have to find the truth ever. No, the truth is kind of a waste of time. Seriously, head of NPR.
But one of the most significant differences critical for moving from polarization to productivity is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth. They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done. Now, none of that's to say that the truth isn't important. The truth obviously exists. It's at the core, or the search for the truth is at the core of some of our greatest human achievements. It can animate and inspire us to do, learn, and create great things. But I think in our messy human hearts, we also know that the truth is something of a fickle mistress, and that the beauty of the truth is actually often in the struggle. It's the reason that we have so many sublime chronicles of the human experience, because there are so many different truths to be explored. And so in this spirit, I know that the truth exists for each of you in this room. It also probably exists for the person sitting next to you. But the thing is, the two of you don't necessarily have the same truths. And this is because for many of us, truth is what we make when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. Each of us has our own truth, and it's probably a good one. It's based...
Okay. That's the woman who's head of NPR, all right? Head of NPR is saying that. Now, I know she got taxpayer dollars, but I'm guessing there was some USAID money in there too somewhere. I mean, she's drinking the Kool-Aid, is she not? John S., thank you. You like that. You like that clip of Whoopi. I get it. You know, there's other ones. I'll go and find that one as well that you're recommending. I mean, it's really unbelievable how biased this media has been. And I'm like, why is that? Like, why? I kept asking myself over the last 4 years, and certainly over the last 8 years, but it was definitely acute over the last 4 years. Like, why are they doing this? Why are they not actually being pragmatic? Why are they ignoring reality, whether it be the Hunter Biden laptop, whether it be that the coronavirus came from Wuhan, China, whether it be, they bought the whole Russia thing. It was basically a bunch of misinformation put out by none other than Hillary Clinton's campaign by way of her law firm, by way of a Fusion GPS company, a bunch of former Wall Street Journal investigative reporters that would dig up all kinds of dirt. They went out and hired Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele went out and hired these other people, one of whom was actually suspected of being a Russian spy. I mean, you can't make it up, right? And then they came up with that thing that read like it was in the National Enquirer, and they were able to actually get a FISA warrant based on that. This is nuts, okay? This is nuts. And the media wouldn't call that out. And they just kept attacking Trump. And I'm like, what is this? Why is this? And I guess it's because this was their livelihood, right? They can't survive on their own. So they had to go do all this nonsense because they're getting paid. They're getting paid. So Catherine Maher, the head of NPR, says truth doesn't really matter. Truth is kind of a waste of time to find because we all have our different truths. You see, she's only going to push out her own truth despite the fact that she's taking your taxpayer dollars. And it's just like what we're seeing out of AP. So Donald Trump has now declared the Gulf of America, it used to be the Gulf of Mexico. He said, we're calling it the Gulf of America. And he has every right to do this. This is within his jurisdiction. I mean, Obama did the same thing with Mount McKinley. So he got kind of happy. You know, he heard it on the plane the other day. AP won't call it Gulf of America, by the way, but let's listen, see his reaction when he hears it for the first time.
Air Force One is currently in international waters, for the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, yeah. He did that well. Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay.
So it's been renamed. It's been renamed, and most people have changed the name. You know, it's Gulf of America now, except for, check this out, one AP. So that's on Google, it's on Apple, everybody changed it, but you've got AP, which, wow, according to DOGE, got like $52 million. Check that out. A lot of it came from USAID. U.S. AGM, Department of State, Department of Defense, Executive Office of the President, wow, Department of Justice. I mean, they were paying for positive coverage. They were paying for their media. And now they won't call it the Gulf of America? Really? Like that's what you're going to dig in your heels about when he has absolute power to do that? Did everybody say we're going to keep, whatever it was named with Obama, you know, people changed the name. I mean, I still may have called it Mount McKinley, not intentionally. Like it's just that's what I grew up knowing as a school kid, right? And then Obama changes it. So it was like, would take you a minute. But Trump wants to call AP out on this, and he's doing so. In fact, he's like, you know what? We don't need you in the White House press room. Why do we need you in the White House press room? You were just an agent of the Democrat Party, effectively. CNN's all freaking out.
I have a thing for you. Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because there's a reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language?
So she's asking whether or not it's a retaliation.
And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the geographical identification name server. And Apple has recognized that. Google has recognized that. Pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America. And it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world. Sure.
Wow. Thank you. Were those like gremlins killing my sound? I do have. Okay, it's back on. Good. Glad you guys caught that. See, this is why it's good to do a live show, because you are all over it. I'm just saying ABC's in a huge amount of trouble right now. NBC, meanwhile, NBC is in the hot seat. And you know why NBC's in the hot seat? They were a little too over their skis with the DEI stuff. I mean, they knew it too, right? So they're kind of in violation of the Constitution because it's being viewed as discriminatory. And that's why they had to spin off that other network, MSNBC.
We could all be fired a year from now or whenever this happens. You never know what's going to happen.
You never know what's going to happen. You never, ever know what is going to happen because you, yes, may all be out of a job. You see, it's come about because, again, Brendan Carr is looking at all of these networks. They have just announced an investigation into NBC Comcast, NBC Universal, because of its DEI practices. In fact, they're writing here on Tuesday, Brendan Carr told Comcast that he had asked the FCC's Enforcement Bureau to investigate the company and its NBC Universal unit for not complying with FCC regulations. In other words, they've been promoting DEI in a way that they believe that the FCC does not comply with DEI, or rather FCC regulations. Comcast said, no, for decades our company has been built on a foundation of integrity and respect for all of our employees and customers. Well, it would explain why they're spinning off that cable network that has some people on it that, well, let's just say have championed a little too much DEI and continue to champion it. I'm talking about Joy Reid and others.
Hey, I just want to give some free advice to the white progressives, particularly white progressive women who may be thinking about marching against the Trump victory, maybe putting back on the P-word hats and doing that thing, I would just say probably don't send any of those invites to any black women you know. I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not coming. I'm pretty sure black women have resigned from the Save America Coalition, Save Democracy Coalition, and definitely the Save the Democratic Party Coalition. I think that's probably not happening. I would just keep those invites maybe among your own friends, because I don't think they're coming. But yeah, I think black women are now on the Save Black Women, Prioritize Black Men, and Prioritize Black Communities, Black Businesses, and that. And, the black spaces, but Save America, Save the Democratic Party. Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. You see, I think the solution has been, okay, well, we're going to fix it this way. We're going to spin that network off so it will no longer fall under the FCC's jurisdiction. I mean, it could still be, frankly, in a whole lot of trouble, the company itself, because, if you're employing people just because they check boxes, that would be a violation of the actual Constitution.
Morning, Comcast, which owns our parent company, NBC Universal, plans to spin off its cable TV networks. That's according to the Wall Street Journal and people familiar with the situation. The company will...
Yeah. Spinning it off because you need to somehow protect yourself from Trump's FCC because you've been in violation of certain things. Anyway, none of these guys are in the clear, okay? They're kind of screwed. All of these media companies that have been taking all of this money, and I suspect now, I'll be interested to see whether DOGE comes up with this. Did MSNBC take money? Did NBC take money? Did CBS take? Is that why there was that little nifty edit on the 60 Minutes tape with Kamala Harris? We got to find this out, okay? We got to find it all out. It's going to be pretty epic. But the View is continuing to sort of spout their false narratives. Now, granted, they have a First Amendment right to do that. Fine. I mean, except for the FCC, right? Because the FCC is the one that gives out the licenses to all of those little affiliates all over the country. And, well, maybe the FCC is not going to renew the affiliate's license. So then ABC won't be able to sell its content like this show, The View, to all of these guys. I mean, they're just losing it because RFK Jr. is now head of HHS. And I'm just laughing because there was nearly $30 million that went from HHS to the New York Times. I don't know how much Disney got, if anything. But I do think all of this is very peculiar. And, as they always say, follow the money trail. It leads to some interesting things. Here is The View today talking about the RFK Jr. appointment and how bad it's going to be.
So, ladies, what do you think of these confirmations?
I'm really nervous, about the whole kit and caboodle, but RFK Jr. is scary to me because a lot of the things we've talked about vaccinations, but we're also seeing a huge upticks of some health problems. We've had measles outbreaks in Texas, at least 22 children, 2 adults affected. The flu levels in the U.S. are higher than they've been in 15 years. And I have to believe some of that comes from the COVID vaccine being politicized and then people holding back on all vaccines because flu vaccines are also down almost by half among kids. Yeah. And Bill Gates was here and he warned us we'll have another pandemic. And I remember asking him during commercial, what happened to the once-in-a-lifetime pandemic? Because I thought we could check that box off. And he was like, no, because there's a lot of things happening in regard to environmentally, people being more in touch in certain areas of the world with animals, which is where these viruses come from. And then he went on to say, and there's a high chance of bioterrorism. So he's like, there's a 10% chance in the next 4 years we could do 2020 all over again. So I think that's the part that's getting me is, the pandemic leading into an RFK Jr., leading into all the numbers we're seeing. That's where I'm kind of concerned right now.
So you're going with Gates. And for some reason, you think that the whole world is going to die because RFK Jr. is now head of HHS. I would just say maybe it would make a little bit more sense to actually prioritize what really matters. Things like the cost of healthcare, right? And the cost of pharmaceuticals. Maybe that should be something that you guys care about. I know that he cares about it. And by the way, that's a big problem. And I do know that, well, Big Pharma pays for a lot of commercials, shall we say. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was just looking at some numbers, and I shared some of this with you guys yesterday, but you get Trump in there now, and he's trying to make America great again. He's trying to make America healthy again. And you've got Big Pharma kind of standing in the way of a lot of this. For example, they raised prices on 575 brand name drugs in January alone. In January, okay? In January. So Trump was already, well, he didn't get in until late January. So, they had about a week to do that. They blocked competition. They spent millions pushing overpriced meds on hardworking Americans, and now they're trying to work with Congress to get all these mandates in there that will basically undermine the only check that you've got for drug companies to have some leverage, right, to negotiate better prices with employers and families and save on prescriptions and healthcare costs. So even worse, if you think about it, they want to effectively strip American employers of this freedom to choose health benefits, which is kind of a big deal, especially for small businesses. And their proposals could hand a Big Pharma $32 million money grab at the expense of American employers and families. Conservatives for lower healthcare costs, they're out there warning right now. They're saying, look, Big Pharma is not on our side on this. They fought against the solutions to lower drug prices. They fought against RFK Jr.'s nomination. You got the View still fighting RFK Jr.'s now appointment. They don't seem to like this agenda of make America healthy again. And they want government control. They want government control over prices, and they want government control over the private healthcare market. And they're now interfering, if you would, with President Trump's promise to cut prescription costs. So I mention this because there's somewhere that you can go, it's actually Pharma Windfall. It is Big Pharma Windfall, but it's pharmawindfall.com. Go there because you can learn more, and if nothing else, figure out like how you can rizz up your congressperson, right? And get them focused on this, because they should be focused on this. I would just say that, we got a lot of work to do. I'm blown away every day, though, by all that DOGE is uncovering. Every single bit of it is just incredible, right, to see. And I think Elon's absolutely right. He said this week that, you need transparency because you need trust. And right now we don't have any transparency. We definitely don't have any trust. And I don't know what the heck was going on for the last 4 years, but they were spending like drunken sailors.
If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happened.
I like it. I mean, I really, really like it. Wall Street Journal said Elon and Trump have actually done more in the last 3 weeks than Ronald Reagan was able to do. Nothing against Ronald Reagan, right? Like, he worked hard. He was a great president. But he wasn't Elon Musk, and he didn't have the technology to be able to go in there and just say, okay, we're going to expose this, that, and the other. Elon and Trump have done more in 3 weeks than Reagan was able to do in 8 years. I mean, they're blowing it all wide open. And so, yeah, you're going to have some people that are angry. You're going to have some Letitia Jameses out there that are really, really angry and really, really threatened. And they're going to try and use this to go after him again. But here's the thing, guys. I don't think she has a leg to stand on. In part, yes, because of the Supremacy Clause. You've heard me tell you about that. In part, because of the way the law is. Right? They have the constitutional authority to do this. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. I mean, you can get into the Commerce Clause if you want to. I mean, there's plenty of authority there. And these people aren't applying for asylum. The asylum rules are actually pretty strict and pretty standard. So how exactly is she going to make this fly? I mean, I don't think that, Letitia, you've got anything. I'd also say this. There's going to be no ability to check the president in this case unless you impeach him. And I don't think anybody wants to impeach him. So I think that New York, you're going to be out of money. He controls the purse strings. He's controlling the Treasury. You're not going to get anything until you actually abide by the law of the land, which he has been very, very clear on. So this is actually pretty cut and dry. This is not a constitutional crisis, not unless you guys choose to make it one. You're the ones in violation of the federal law. So he's cutting off the money spigot. I think it's going to work. I mean, I don't think you're going to have a choice unless you want to secede from the union somehow, and then, that's your business. You can try and survive on your own. Good luck, New York. That'll really work out well. Everybody's leaving. New York Stock Exchange announced that they are opening up New York Stock Exchange, Texas, NYSE, Texas. They're actually taking their Chicago unit and heading down to Texas with it because they want that diversification. I mean, you think you really want to be in New York? New York, where Letitia James is going to go after you for anything and everything? I mean, Kevin O'Leary said it well.
More importantly, the message about the American brand. You think about America, the reason this is the number one economy on earth is that we have laws and we have due process and we have property rights. It attracts foreign capital from all around the world. All of that is being shaken to the core here. The concept of seizing assets in 30 days on a bond number that's never been issued. No insurance bond company's ever issued anything near this, so there was no chance it was going to happen. And only giving 30 days notice and time, that's a really bad message. And I think New Yorkers...
It's really bad. What they did to him, what Letitia James and that judge did to him was really bad. Getting in the middle of the financial transaction, trying to fine him $500 million with a B, $500 million. I mean, that is really, really, really bad stuff. And now she's flying in the face of the law. She's completely violating everything. He's turned off the money, and somehow she thinks it's unconstitutional. I'm just telling you, you know what, Letitia, what you're doing is unconstitutional. This is not a constitutional crisis. It will be resolved. It will be resolved by the Supreme Court. Okay, so deal with that. It's good to see you all. Happy Valentine's Day. I appreciate the commentary. Always, always, always. I appreciate you guys being here. Please make sure that you subscribe to the show. It's really important. Subscribe, share, like. Go check out 76 Research if you have a little bit of free time. Our model portfolios there, 10 to 15 stocks in each one. Go check those out. You can actually get this for free. Oh, I'm going to give this away. If you go to investinmaga.com, investinmaga.com, because look, the MAGA train has left the station. It's happening. Invest in America. Invest in you and yourself. Invest in the future. I can't stress that enough. And going into the weekend, sometimes you have a little bit of extra time. All kinds of stuff happening. In fact, the Ukraine situation seems to be coming to some kind of resolution. I get it. Ukraine doesn't like it. Europe apparently doesn't like it very much. But, maybe some of the people that were profiting off of that don't really like it very much. But again, this is human life you're talking about. So you need to be really thoughtful about where you pick your battles, right? And I think Donald Trump, he said this to me many times, he'd rather lose dollars than lives. And I think that it's a worthwhile sensibility to have. I so appreciate you all being here. Good to see so many familiar faces, and thank you for the feedback. I will see you right back here live on the show on Monday, and we have plenty of stuff coming your way over the weekend. See you soon.